Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. I cracked the mic today to record this broadcast with nothing really specific on my mind, which doesn't really matter, because if you've listened to Geek Therapy Radio even just once, but definitely twice, you know that one of the glorious parts of this radio show and of this podcast is that this is geek therapy, and in a lot of ways, this is my own geek therapy for myself. So my mind wanders. I'm definitely undiagnosed ADHD. I don't have hyperactivity, but ADD for sure. And I'm thinking about going and actually taking a test to see if it's true. But you know what? Part of me. Here's the first tangent. I was just going to say that I go off on tangents on Geek Therapy Radio about different geek subjects and what's on my mind and what's going on in the world of geekdom and maybe otherwise. ADD. Even if I was diagnosed with ADD, I would argue, I'd be kind of like, what do I do with this? What do I do with the information that I have ADD? Because the doctor is going to say, well, we can prescribe you things. There's different ways to deal with it and manage it. And I'm thinking, well, the way I've been managing it so far has actually turned out well for me so far. I'm not a millionaire. I don't drive around Ferraris and things like that, but I've got a home. I've got a child and another child on the way. I have too many cars that I know what to do with. I've got a 1983 DeLorean. I've got stuff. As far as checking off the list of American consumerism and doing what you got to do to be a good American consumer, my Amazon account will tell you that I'm fine. I'm doing fine there. I make sure that I have the money saved first. Everything that comes out of paycheck first, after Uncle Sam takes his stupid cut of it. Everything that I earn first goes to the proper channels. It first goes to investments. It goes into my investments for my children's education. It goes into investments for my retirement. It gets saved off the bat. Everything I make, it gets saved first. And then whatever's left over can be used for fun money or the laptop or the camera or whatever. I'm fine. If you would have asked me, in 2011 when I first got my start in radio, hey man, one day your career will be going so well that you can be laying on the couch watching your giant, 55-inch, which is not that giant, but your big OLED TV with your beautiful 3-year-old son running around at Christmas tree, and you're cruising on Amazon, just kind of people sending you their wish lists. Like my wife sent me her Amazon wish list, and I don't know when she's going to listen to this podcast, but it's I'm not going through and just picking and choosing what I'm going to take off this list to get. I just got the whole list, and it wasn't that much money, but still, if you would have told me in 2011 when I first got my start in radio, making $11 an hour part-time pre-tax, you're going to be chilling looking at your beautiful son with your beautiful wife and cruising Amazon, and just without even thinking about it, just hitting buy all to the Christmas list, I would have thought you're insane. I was there's no way this path that I'm on in radio will amount to being able to buy someone's entire Amazon wish list in one fell swoop. And again, you're thinking it's thousands of US dollars. That's not the case at all. It really wasn't that much money, but still, it was more than $200. But if you would have asked me in 2011, hey, you're going to be buying things $200 kind of willy-nilly after you've saved all this money, you have enough to save, you have enough money to pay your mortgage, you have enough money to pay the car note, and then you have enough money to buy video games and computer stuff and microphones and whatever else, I would have been you're crazy. There's no way I'm going to have just a frivolous $200 to have a couple of drinks of bourbon and go on Amazon, which is the most dangerous conversation. It's the most dangerous situation financially, no matter kind of where you are at financially. A couple of shots of bourbon and Amazon, is a very bad mix. And I have this joke that I've postulated on Twitter a couple times, which is basically that everybody listening to this, you in the car driving around listening to this, you in your garage right now listening to this, you tinkering with your O-scale model trains or HO model scale trains, you playing your video games, you tinkering with your drone or your RC airplanes or whatever you're working on, wherever this voice is meeting you right now. You, yes, I'm talking to you specifically and individually. If you're over 21, you have things in your Amazon saved for later cart that you are one bourbon away from purchasing. We are all guilty of it. We are all guilty. I have things right now in my Amazon cart that, you know what, next time I have a little nightcap, a little rum and coke or whatever, it's getting bought. It's getting put in that cart, and it's coming my way within 2 business days via Prime. We all have things in our Amazon Save for Later cart that we are one drink away from purchasing. And that's the truest thing that you're going to hear in this entire segment. We all have things in our Amazon Save for Later cart we are one drink away from purchasing. And if you would have told me years ago that I'd be in a position to where I could do that kind of slightly irresponsible activity and be financially okay, not have it mean that I have to like tweak and torque around my accounts and things to move monies around to make sure I make rent, I wouldn't have believed you. I'd be like, that's crazy that my life could turn out in such a way where I don't have to constantly be worrying about money in that way. Now the worry financially is just, I look at my path of retirement and money management towards that path and Riker's education and my next son's education and things like that. The worry is like, am I on track for that? There's always a little worry that, should I be saving more or am I okay? And of course the answer is you could always save more. Did I need, that drone that I got? I would argue yes, because it's part of my profession. It's part of my job at the Houston Museum of Natural Science as a YouTube manager, making videos for Houston Museum of Natural Science. Yeah, it is a thing, but did I need to get that drone? Could I have saved a few bucks on a slightly less expensive drone? Like, you could always save more. But now the financial worry, and I think for a lot of people my age, 40 years old, it's not necessarily, if you're so lucky and blessed to be in the position, it's not necessarily, am I going to make mortgage? It's like, I know I'm going to make mortgage, but could I be saving more? And especially, in this season, my heart goes out to people who are struggling with the mortgage, because that's a very likely scenario with a lot of people is struggling to make ends meet. Anyways, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Let's talk about a drunk scooter ride. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, geektherapyradio.com, which, by the way, I'm updating geektherapyradio.com depending on when you go visit the website. Hopefully I've got it sussed out. Right now it's kind of a blank page with a cassette background as I'm recording this, but I'm simplifying it. I'm just streamlining and simplifying it. So if you go to geektherapyradio.com, the only 2 things I want you to see, first and foremost, somebody visiting geektherapyradio.com, I want them to see a giant, play button. Maybe not a giant play button, but I want them to see the playlist of podcasts. You should be able to go to a podcast website and just immediately start listening to the podcast. So that's first and foremost. Second is I wanted the background to kind of depict, just in an instant, kind of where I'm at as a geek, kind of tell the story of me and of Geek Therapy Radio just in one image. And I think a cassette tape kind of perfectly encapsulates at a glance what Geek Therapy Radio is about. I'm staring at my tape deck right now. It's a glorious Sony 3-head tape deck. It's a TC K615S Sony 3-head tape deck, which still works. And occasionally, if you listen to Geek Therapy Radio, if you subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio podcast in your favorite podcast player, plug, occasionally I have shows that I record to cassette tape. So if you're curious about how good a cassette can sound in the year in the 2020s as of recording. You can go back and go through the playlist of my podcast. I have hundreds of podcasts by now, hundreds of episodes, and you can search. If you go to the website, especially geektherapyradio.com, you see the podcast listed there, and there's like a little thing there that says search podcasts. You just type in cassette or CASS and see all the episodes that I've talked about a cassette. I am diligent in how I title and describe my podcasts so that when you're just kind of glancing through the playlist, you can easily see what do you want to listen to. So if I'm talking about model trains one day for whatever reason, or RC airplanes, or drones, or computers, or Amigas, or Commodores, or old 286s, 386s, or I'm talking about my reference grade Atom studio monitors, or music production, or whatever, you can see in the podcast description and title that that's what the show is about, or DeLorean, or Cybertruck, or whatever. But if you want to hear episodes that were recorded to actual, type 1 or type 2 cassettes, just go to geektherapyradio.com and it says search podcast, type in cassette, and it'll come up. So, yes, I am working on the website. You see the podcast play. I want the next thing you see that's prevalent to be the contact, to be just start typing something and I'll see it, which I do. And y'all reach out. Tristan, as I'm recording this right now, was asking if they should buy a DeLorean right now or not, and I just kind of told Tristan my experience with owning a DeLorean for 20 years. They said that the only thing is they need to make it their daily driver. Is it okay as a daily driver? And so I was just giving my experience with having a DeLorean for 20 years, and the time that I did daily drive it for several years, I delivered pizza with it, for God's sake. And that person, Tristan, contacted me through the website, just right there. So as I revamp the website, I want you, a visitor, to be able to listen to the podcast immediately. 2, just as easily be able to contact me. And then 3rd down the line would be like, all right, I want to revamp my merch store. Not many people go there to buy merch in the first place, and I revamped it in 2020 when there was a whole bunch of supply chain issues. I want to have merch in there that's really affordable. Like, for me, it's not about money. I'm not trying to make a lot of money with this radio show or podcast. If it happens, awesome. I could just save more money for retirement, like I was talking about in the first segment. But I just want people to have access, and kind of, if they like the show, if they like what I'm doing here, if they like Geek Therapy Radio, that they can kind of put a cheap sticker on their laptop, or a bumper sticker, or maybe a coffee mug, little things like that, t-shirts of various kind of like price scale, so that people don't get to my merch store, which doesn't exist yet, by the way, not really, and be like, $60 for a beach towel, $100 for this and that. No. Since I said I don't care about money, I would price it just enough to like cover shipping, and then maybe I get 25 American cents above that. I'd price it very reasonably, because I'm not trying to gouge. Like, you go to these people in these podcasts merch stores and YouTube channels merch stores, and you're seeing like $70 screwdrivers. I'm not saying Linus Tech Tip screwdriver ain't worth $70 or whatever the heck they're charging for it, but like, this stuff is so expensive. Like, merch stores for bands and things like that, I understand why they price it the way they do, because they need, bands, especially struggling artists, need to make a living, and I have no problem. I will shell out $30 for a crappy t-shirt at a rock concert if I really like the band, because I want them to be able to feed themselves. I want them to be able to have enough gas to get to their next gig. But I am in a position to where I don't need to gouge y'all, and I'm not greedy. So I just want y'all to have access to Geek Therapy Radio stuff for a very reasonable, if not cheap, price. So as I revamp my website, I'll build up the merch store again to more cater towards, obviously, that I'm not trying to gouge y'all. And if I see an item on there that's going to be like, hey, you need to charge $20 for this coffee mug because materials cost this and shipping costs this and whatever, then I might not offer it. Or if I do, it's going to be down towards the bottom for people that really, want to shell out You might be thinking $20, that's not that much, but is it $20 for a coffee mug? I don't know. I don't know. If someone's on the fence about that, I want there to be more options for them. I want to have the stickers for $1 or $2. I want to have, oh gosh, whatever, like a t-shirt for $10 if possible. I'm not trying to gouge y'all. So anyways, revamping the website there, geektherapyradio.com. You can also just email me directly, JOHNNY @geektherapyradio.com. Johnny @geektherapyradio.com. And if you're listening to the radio, you can find the podcast anywhere. iHeartRadio app, of course, Google, Apple, Spotify. Just type in Geek Therapy Radio Podcast, and there you go. Also on YouTube and all the other socials, TikTok and all that. So I ended the last segment, and this is what I'm going to get into for the remainder of this segment. And then the next segment, I'm sure, we'll see. But the other week, like 2 weeks ago, let me predicate this by saying, as of recording, I am 40 years old. I am not a spring chicken. I partook in an activity, an adventure a couple weeks ago that a 22-year-old would have no problem with, but as a 40-year-old, I was paying for it for days. Afterwards, my body was like, dude, I know your spirit is willing, but your flesh cannot keep up with this. You cannot do this all the time, and your bones and your back and your muscles are going to tell you, and your brain are going to tell you, you can't do this. You're going to be punished for the activities you partook in the other day. So that activity, it's innocent. It wasn't debaucherous or anything like that. But here's what I did. It was one of those nights where you get home or you're like really hungover the next day and you're surprised by it. For any kids listening, don't drink to excess. I mean, this is stupid. I don't do it very often, which is why I don't have any sort of tolerance for it, which is why I felt so bad the night of and the day after. But so the day after, it's one of those things where you're like counting, like, I don't think I had that many drinks. I think I only had like 4 drinks, or the equivalent of 4 beers. And then the next day, as clarity kind of sets in, you start like tracing your steps, and you're like, I didn't have 4 drinks. I had like 12 to 14 drinks over a span of time. And that's what happened to me. Is I went out to dinner with Sarah and Riker, and I was in a very good mood. I only ever drink alcoholic beverages when I'm in a good mood. When I'm bummed out or depressed or anything like that, I don't drink. The idea of having a beer when I'm depressed is the worst idea in the world to me. It doesn't appeal to me at all. But when I'm feeling good, in a good mood, that's where, if I am going to have a beverage, I do have a beverage. And I did have a beverage or 14 this other night, and I will proceed to tell you about it in the third segment coming up, which is the longest segment. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. Your 40-year-old mental curator is about to tell you about his party night. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. In the last segment, I teased that I was going to tell y'all about my party night that I had the other, like a week or two ago. Party's a stretch. By party, I mean I drink too much. Let me recap the drinks that I had and just kind of how the night went. So, went out with my family. I was in a good mood. Me, Sarah, Riker, Sarah driving, obviously. We went to Casa V, we call it, Casa Vaqueros here in Missouri City, Texas. We go to that place, man, it seems like once a week we go to Casa V. But anyways, I'm in a really good mood that night. I have 1 margarita, and usually I stop at 1 margarita at Casa V. I'm like, nah, 1 margarita is good. I will definitely feel 1 margarita. I'm 40 years old. I'm going to feel 1 margarita. I don't drink that much that often, so 1 margarita is good. But on this particular night, and this is probably immediately where the train of the evening derailed, is the waiter came around. I was in a really good mood, especially because I had already finished 1 margarita. And he's like, you want another? And I said, where I normally would say no, I said, normally I'd say no, but tonight, sure, I'll do another margarita. My wife is driving. Everything's fine. So had the other 2 margaritas, not a big deal. 2 margaritas and you go home and you just have a pleasant evening. You know, you can tell that you've had a couple margaritas, but it's nothing crazy. Certainly nothing to be hungover about. You drink more water, you eat more food. It's nothing. You feel warm for a couple hours and that's it. No problem at all. So where things really started getting off the rails was that I remembered. Before we went out to eat at Casa V, I was still doing stuff in the garage, like cleaning the garage and doing whatever. And I had 2 Michelob Ultras, which is an extremely light beer. It's practically water. So as I'm recounting my steps, my drinks that night, I said, oh, I had 2 Michelob Ultras that afternoon before going to Casa V, where I had 2 margaritas. So already right there, and this is over the span of like 7 hours. We're talking 2 light beers and 2 margaritas over the span of a whole afternoon, like 7 or 8 hours. So I'm fine. But after dinner, my neighbor Al, and I'll send him this episode. My neighbor Al texts me. He's like, "Bro, remember the other night we were sipping on bourbon, and you said you wanted to come to this office party that his wife was having down at the clubhouse for the golf course, the La Quinta golf course, which is in our community, in our neighborhood, just a couple blocks away." It's like, "Man, we're having that office shindig. There's not enough people. A bunch of people RSVP'd and not, a bunch, like 20 people didn't show up. So we've got extra. If you want to see the sound system, he's running the sound and the PA and the music, for all that." And I said, "Yeah, I'll come. I just want to see your gear. I'm a geek. I want to see your Mackie mixer and your 1500 watt powered 15-inch speakers and just kind of in your Sennheiser microphones. It'd be fun just to cruise down the street, literally just down the street from my house and just kind of hang out for a bit while you help you run sound or whatever. Just kind of fun to hang out and tinker with soundboard stuff. I'm always game for that." So I was like, "Yeah, bro, come on." So I was like, "You know what? This is after the second margarita, so I'm feeling it. I'm home, chilling, and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the margarita in a good way, not anything stupid or crazy. Just like I'm in a good spot. I'm in the spot to where your neighbor asks you to come out and do something. You're like, heck yeah, man, I'm there. No hesitation. Yeah, let's do it." So I was like, it's right down the street. I had just started listening to a podcast called This Is Important by the Workaholics crew. And I was really enjoying it. It's like, you know what? I'm going to get on my little tiny electric scooter and I'm going to pop my Samsung earbud in my ear. And I'm just going to cruise up to the golf course clubhouse where this, office party's going on. And just the idea, it was a cool, crisp evening. I was like, this is perfect. I'm just going to cruise up there, listen to my podcast, go hang out with Al and run sound, listen to music. He said there's plenty of free dinner because, half the people didn't show up who RSVP'd. Good evening. So get on the scooter, pop in my earbud, listening to the This Is Important podcast by the Workaholics dudes, just enjoying it. And I cruise up to the clubhouse. I should remind you of what I'm wearing. I'm wearing sweatpants, my house slippers, and like a Street Fighter 2 t-shirt. Or no, what was it? I think it was my Nintendo NES controller that says classically trained, or it might have been my Jurassic Park t-shirt. Just picture a dude in tan house slippers, sweatpants, and a Nintendo t-shirt just ripping through the neighborhood on a little electric scooter, which has like a neon blue light underneath it. A couple margaritas, just feeling good, enjoying the podcast, enjoying the weather, enjoying the evening. I had already put Riker to bed, by the way. Riker's good. He's in bed. Sarah's home with Riker. Everything's fine. I'm just going to go enjoy the evening with my neighbor Al. I get there. The party is bumping. It's an office party, like a bumping office party, which means like 3 people are on the dance floor. The other 40 people are at their round tables chatting it up and slowly imbibing more alcohol. And I'm cruise my scooter pretty much onto the dance floor. Did my sweats and house slippers and Nintendo t-shirt. You think I'm joking? I literally rode the scooter up to the golf course clubhouse, and then I walked it in through the entrance, and then I left it in the building. I in the conference hall or whatever the where the party was. I rolled right through the door with my scooter and just leaned it up against the wall where I entered in by the bar. By the open bar is where I left the scooter. And I traipse in with my house slippers and sweats and t-shirt, and I just sit down behind the mixer with Al, the audio mixer with Al. And what you need to know about my neighbor is he is one of the coolest people on the planet Earth, one of the most generous people on the face of the planet. I mean, he's helped me through various ice storms, replacing pipes that have burst in my ceiling, and he's just so open, and his backyard is a paradise. He's got a bar in his backyard. So I get there, and he's like, dude, here's some dinner, man. He gives me some like roast beef and rolls and mashed potatoes, and I had already eaten dinner. I already had Mexican food a couple hours beforehand. So yeah, I'm drinking. He's like, what do you want, bro? And I was like, I'll just do like a bourbon and Sprite, or what did I say? Bourbon and Coke, just bourbon, nothing crazy. Just, I'm trying to maintain the evening, maintain composure. I'm not looking to get crazy. It just a little something to drink, keep the warmth going for that evening. So he brings me the bourbon and Coke. It's probably Jack and Coke. Let's just call it Jack and Coke. And I drink it, and it immediately blows my head off. I'm like, whoa, this is like 3 parts Jack and like 1 part, like you could see through it. It was opaque. You could see through this drink. And I was like, man. And I was like, I got you, brother. So I know the bartender. And so I sip on that, eating more food, and I'm fine. At this point, I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm good. This is my level. This drink is really strong, so this is definitely it. I'm done with the drinking for the evening. The night progressed, more music was playing, and then as we're breaking down, as we're like wrapping cables and putting the speakers away, and one thing, a little side note, is I ask other fellow sound people, how do you want these cables wrapped? That is the most important question you can ask a sound guy is, what do you want to do with these cables? Don't just start wrapping cables. Every sound guy or girl has their own way of wrapping cables or not wrapping cables, but it's a cardinal sin to just start wrapping the way you want to wrap another man's cables, another sound person's cables. So I asked him, Al, Al, do you roll your cables, wind up your cables in a specific way? He says, very specific. I said, gotcha, 10-4, I'll move to something else. So we wrap up all the cables. He wraps the cables. He's putting gear away. We're putting gear away. I'm taking speakers off of stands and different power amps and things like that. And at some point in all the, looking through backpacks and carrying cases, he's like, dude, I almost forgot. I totally forgot I had this in here. He had some like Black Label Crown Royal in the backpack, and I already knew what that meant. I was like, oh man, you found a bottle of liquor in your backpack, in a backpack. Well, it was one of his backpacks. It's like, dude, I totally forgot I had this in here. It's like, I know what that means. So he poured a heaping helping of Black Label Crown Royal into just a tumbler, into the same kind of tall tumbler that I had my Jack and Coke in. And he probably poured like 4 or 5 ounces in there. I mean, it was straight like Mad Men style, just pure liquor. And still I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll just sip on this for the remainder. Just sip on it and we'll be fine. It's okay. At that point I'd lost count and just was still thinking that I didn't have that much to drink today. This is fine. I'll just drink this pure straight liquor and this will be fine. So the evening goes on and we're breaking things down, and I finish off the glass of liquor of Crown Royal, and that's when I'm not even done with the story yet, y'all. I'm not even done with this. This is only halfway through. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Scooter rides through golf courses, across highway. We'll talk about it. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. GeekTherapyRadio.com for more information and to contact me, or just email me directly, Johnny, Johnny, at GeekTherapyRadio.com. And you can grab the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, iHeartRadio app, of course, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, all that good stuff, Spreaker. Just type in and search for Geek Therapy Radio Podcast into your favorite podcast app, and you are good to go. All right, let me finish my story of my drunken scooter ride from a few weeks ago and how I paid the price dearly the next few days from it. So if you're just listening to the broadcast, go back and get the podcast to hear the entire story up to this point. But I had been steadily drinking that day from about 2 or 3, 4 p.m. that day. Sneaking up on me kind of drinking. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The sneaking up on you kind of drinking, where you're like, I haven't had that much. And then you go back the next day after you're recovering with a hangover. You're like, I had triple what I thought that I drank. So it was one of those types of situations. So picking up where we left off in my little story here, I helped Al, my neighbor, pack up all his stuff gear, all his sound gear from the party we were at the golf course clubhouse, in which I was wearing my house slippers, sweatpants, Nintendo t-shirt, and had rolled my electric scooter pretty much directly onto the dance floor to get there. We were all done breaking down and putting things in the bed of his pickup truck. And we're just kind of standing out there talking. I got my foot on my scooter, kind of like pushing it back and forth, just kind of recapping the day, talking. I'm like, yeah, man, y'all have a good night. It was his wife and daughter were with him. I said, y'all have a good night. I'm just going to cruise on home on my scooter, probably take a shortcut across like the 17th hole, cart path, whatever. And I'm just really enjoying the idea of taking a long scooter cruise home with my earbud in my ear, listening to this new podcast that I got, that I was enjoying, called This Is Important, by the Workaholics people. So I said, yeah, y'all just cruise on home, be safe. We'll text each other when we're home safe. I'm gonna cruise on my scooter here around the golf course at midnight, or I think it was 11 p.m. at that point. Yeah, it was like around 11 p.m. at that point. Just gonna listen to this hour-long podcast, whatever, and enjoy the evening, enjoy the scooter, and just some me time. Really, it was just some much-needed me time. So that's what I do. We shake hands and give hugs and like, all right, see y'all later. So I am cruising around the golf course. I have documented all of this, by the way. I have a running commentary going on my phone through video that I will never share with the general audience, but I will share with my WhatsApp group. I've been recording the entire time, documenting this this journey that I'm on for that evening. So I'm cruising down the golf course, and I'm probably 30 minutes just enjoying the podcast. I got off the scooter to go take a picture by the flag of like the 16th hole or whatever, just kind of for my friends, saying, man, I'm 40 years old, y'all. And this reminds me of a like a college night where, you drink and then you'd go run around UH campus or something like that. But I'm 40 years old. So I'm documenting all of this, and it's probably 30 minutes since we said goodbye, and he gives me a text. He's like, bro, I could hear his voice in the text. It's like, bro, we're at Bogey's now. We unloaded all the stuff at my house, which is my neighbor. He's just right across the street from me. It's like we unloaded everything. We got everything in the garage, and then we decided the night was still young, so me and Tiffany cruised out to his daughter, Tiffany. We cruised out to Bogey's, just, a couple miles away. We haven't been to Bogey's in a while. You want to come out? Like, oh, man, I'm going to say yes. You know that I shouldn't say yes, but I'm going to say yes right now, because that's how I was feeling at the moment, just loving life and just living it up and really enjoying myself. So I get that text while I'm on the tee box of like the 15th hole. I'm working my way backwards through this is the El Dorado golf course, actually. I'm working my way back through the holes, and I'm sitting there at a Cartwright and the cross street to Highway 6, 1042, whatever, Murphy Road, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sitting there like, it's dead. There's no traffic, and it's safe. There's a crosswalk, and I'm at a part of the street where it's very not busy. So I do the crosswalk, and I cross the crosswalk on my scooter, making my way to Beverages. I poked it into Google Maps. It's like, oh, Beverages, it's like, 6 minutes by scooter. So through Missouri City, Texas. So I'm cruising, listening to the podcast, cruising down to Beverages, which I had told Sarah like a day before we were going by. I was like, Beverages, I've always wanted to go to Beverages. We should check out Beverages one day. Well, that was the night that I checked out Beverages with my neighbor Al. So I am cruising. Remember, I'm documenting the whole time on my phone, which unfortunately y'all will never, probably never see. I need to edit it together and just see if I'm just the drunken fool that I thought I was. So I'm on the sidewalk, and it's like 11:30 by this point. I'm cruising up to Beverages, which is on close to Highway 6 in Missouri City, Texas. So I cruise up there uneventful, just enjoying the evening. I'm cruising past the YMCA, where I'm a member, and thinking I can drive my scooter here to the YMCA. Good to know. So I get to Beverages and bring my scooter. Actually, I didn't bring my scooter inside. I brought it inside at first, and then I said, can I put the scooter in one of y'all's cars? If you brought your truck, or if Tiffany brought her car. So I put my scooter in the back of Tiffany's SUV so that it wouldn't get stolen outside or whatever. Get to the bar. Of course, Al's like, dude, what do you want? And I'm like, Al, I'll pay for it. Like, if I do get something, I'll pay for it. He's like, no, man, I got you. I got you, brother. I was like, I can pay for it, though. I'm okay buying a beer. It's okay. He's like, no, bro. Just being super generous as he is. So I have a Blue Moon and a half. Like, I finish one Blue Moon and I drink the other half of a Blue Moon. And by this point, I'm still not feeling like, I don't feel at this point like I'm inebriated at all. Just like I'm really enjoying the time, really enjoying the conversation with different people, with Al, with Tiffany, with Tiffany's friends, and I'm just enjoying the conversation and looking forward to, that I've had enough drinks that I've got a handle on it. Like, I'm not drunk. I'm telling myself, like, I'm not drunk yet. I don't feel like I'm wasted, so to speak. So I do the Blue Moon and then another half of another Blue Moon. And at that point, I know, I was like, okay, just in case I'm losing track of how much I'm drinking, I'm not finishing this Blue Moon. I'm just it's 1 a.m. at this point. I'm tired. I'm 40 years old. I'm not 22 years old anymore. I am not cut out for the kind of like drinking every weekend. I don't imbibe like that very often at all, for very good reason, because it sucks. My body hates it, and I don't like being drunk, period. I don't like not having my faculties, just as a kind of general rule about myself. So I'm feeling really good, and it's 1 a.m. and I said, okay, well, I'm definitely going to go home now. It's too late. Sarah's probably worried, which she was. She texted me like, are you okay? So I shake hands and hug, get the scooter out the back of of Tiffany's car, because I know they're going to go to a 4 a.m. at least. Like, the party ain't going to stop. The party doesn't stop for Al until the sun comes up, and even then it probably keeps on going. So it very often does keep on going. I was like, I can't hack that. If it's one thing, like, I already know that I'm on the limit of what I think that I've done tonight, and there's no way I can go to 4 a.m. the next morning. I think we had church. No, I didn't. Did we have church next morning? No, next morning was Saturday. Cruise home on the scooter, everything's fine, get in the bed, everything's swirling when I'm in bed. The world is spinning, and that's when my first inclination was like, I had way more than I thought, but I will go back in time tomorrow and do the counting. So when I went back in time the next day, Saturday morning, I was like, I didn't have 4 drinks. There were probably 4 drinks alone in that Crown Royal cup that I was drinking. I tallied it up. It's probably 12 to 14 drinks, which for me is an ungodly amount of alcohol. So lesson learned. I hopefully will never do that again. Wink, wink. Hopefully, fingers crossed. That's the end of that story. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of giving love, and you are worthy of receiving love, and you are worthy of your own self-respect. Thank you so much for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I've been your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. Go download the podcast, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, if you're just listening to this on the radio. It was wonderful talking to you, and I will talk to you all next time. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and be safe.